Let's crack into the Mashing Pumpkins first.
Andy, I dare you to not like one of these beers.
Yeah, I dare you.
You're fucking on. Oh, it's not that bad when you dump them together.
Please tell me you got that. That might be the cold open.
Cheers.
You've stumbled on into the Tap Takeover podcast. All right, welcome back to the Tap Takeover podcast tasting episode. We did this last year. This is our second annual traipse through Jesus' Pumpkin Patch. Jesus is the pumpkin beer collector in our group. He loves to collect these. He's got beers from over the years, pumpkin flavored, pumpkin spiced, all kinds of different pumpkin added to his beers. And this one is Jesus' Pumpkin Patch Part 2. Now with 100% more Jim. You didn't ask for it. You didn't want it. But we got more Jim on this episode than we've ever had in Jesus' Pumpkin Patch. So, Jim, tell us about our beer today.
Our beer today is the Imperial Pumpkin by Southern Tier. It is an 8.6% ale with pumpkin and natural flavors.
Now, Jesus, was this most recent year? Has this one been kind of aged in your cellar? I know you like to do that experimental pumpkin aging.
Yeah, this is actually from last year.
Okay.
So we're keeping that over just to see how it falls off. What I'm finding, and maybe that's because I love pumpkin beers, I don't think they're falling off. I think they're still great. I love the sweetness. I love the spice. I still think it's a great beer.
Now, Jesus, you introduced my love of pumpkin beers. I didn't love them at first. You introduced me to some really, really good ones. We had a great time on Jesus' Pumpkin Patch 2017. Jim, you weren't there for that one. Andy, you were. And I believe it was your least favorite tasting of the entire year. What do you think of this first beer?
God damn it. Jim said the beer, not the first beer. So this is the beer of the episode. Pumpkin beers they're bullshit. I hate them. It's just me. But thanks for listening to the Tap Takeover podcast.
Fuck you, man! Oh, this is the pumpkin episode. We just getting started. Oh no!
We may have
the
brought
pumpkin
you
patch
here.
got bigger.
We may have brought you here under false pretenses and told you there was just going to be one beer. We got 7 more to go, motherfucker.
You're drinking the lightest one, by the way. So your thoughts on the first one?
Yeah, your thoughts on the first one. Southern Tier Pumpkin.
It's just not good. It's just not good to me.
What do you think of the aging? Has the aging done anything for the beer? I feel like some of the pumpkin flavors have kind of fallen off a little bit, so this might be a little more approachable.
Did we drink this in the last pumpkin episode?
We did not.
A year ago?
Nope.
No, well, it probably still tastes just as bad. I mean, honestly, I don't like pumpkin.
I think this is pretty good, and I think after a year, I think some of the flavors have settled down. This is a very approachable pumpkin beer after even a year. I like it fresh. You know, I'm not averse to the pumpkin right off the vine. Also, the Rum King, if you can get your hands on that, also a fantastic beer where it's been rum barrel aged. Jesus, what do you think of this one?
No, I think it's great, man. But you're right. Just that little bit. So the thing about pumpkin beers, right? It's the sweetness and the spice, right? This one, the sweetness actually has fallen off. So you still get that spice. It's an ale. It still has that kind of maltiness to it. I still think it's a solid beer. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not quite to your level, Jesus, but I love a good pumpkin beer, man. So this is...
boy, 3 against 4, 3 against 1.
And 3 against 4. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
so-
you're all wrong.
So the spice is still pretty strong on this one, but there's a really great grain bread notes to the aroma that still carry over where kind of the malt and that sweetness has dropped off. But yeah, aging it a year has done okay. I don't know if it's improved it at all, but probably drink it fresh.
Not necessarily a beer that I would age, but it's been a fun experiment. All right, so Jesus, tell us about the other beers that we're going to be tasting, and if you want to give them to us kind of in the order that we're going to be doing them, I think that would help our listeners.
Well, I'm not going to lie. This is very Missouri heavy because I love Schlafly, and I love their pumpkin beer. I think it's one of the best ones. And actually, this was inspired from the Great Taste episode when Stephen Hale, the brewer at Schlafly, actually mentioned the pumpkin stout beer. So last trip I took to St. Louis, I got one of those. So I have the pumpkin stout, the pumpkin ale, the regular one, and the barrel-aged pumpkin ale. It's called from their Ibex Cellar series. So I've never had any of those beers. Actually, you got this for me, Alex.
Well, I got that the barrel aged one, but yeah, it was really fun talking with Steven at Great Taste in the Midwest, and he mentioned how he loves a pumpkin beer, but he loves pouring it into a stout and kind of mixing the two, and that's kind of where this pumpkin stout came from.
Yeah, and I never had it, so I'm excited to try it. So, staking in Missouri, we're gonna do O'Fallon's. We got their pumpkin beer and their vanilla pumpkin, and then we're bringing it local with Badger State's pumpkin beer. It's called Mashing Pumpkins.
Great name.
I know, I love it. And then one of my favorites all time is the Lakefront, their barrel-aged pumpkin imperial ale, which is a nice way to finish it, or a terrible way to finish it if you're Andy.
Yeah, so we got some friends of the show here, Stephen Hale, who we hope to get down and have him on the show. Andy, how excited are you about this pumpkin tasting?
I think for my benefit, we're going to have to test Steven's theory about pouring the pumpkin beer into a stout.
All right, well, let's start with that one.
All right, good call, Alex. Let's start with that one. Let's do the pumpkin stout. So, Andy, I want to hear your thoughts first.
Worse than the first. Just not my thing. Just not my thing. There's a better mouthfeel to this one, but the taste is just not there for me. It's like pumpkin that sat out a little bit too long before you put it in a pie. It's not good to me. Then again, pumpkin's not my thing. Some people like it, but some people hate it.
Well, pumpkin is my thing, but I actually am kind of leaning towards you. I'm not so high on this one. I love the nose. It's such a good smell, but it's a pumpkin stout, but that spiciness and that sweetness is not there for me. It's more stout than pumpkin.
Yeah, I almost need like 20% more pumpkin on this one. I've tried the Warlock. Is that a pumpkin porter? Also Southern Tier, which was our first beer. That one I like a little more than this because they kind of pump it full of a little more pumpkin flavor. Yeah. I can see where Stephen Hale is coming from, where if you're just getting into pumpkin beers, this is a pretty good, kind of a gateway drug. If you like stouts, and it gives you just that tinge of pumpkin. But no, I would go full pumpkin.
Yeah, it needs more pumpkin.
Like Christopher Walken needed more cowbell. This beer needs more pumpkin.
We just add the aftertaste on this one is just.
Yeah, I just
lingers, and for me, it's just atrocious.
Yeah, I always think of it as like different. You smell it, you taste it, and that aftertaste. The smell is. I really love that nose. That's a great. That aftertaste isn't there, and then it's just not enough. It's just not enough pumpkin for me.
2% of Malort in that thing. Yeah.
Before we're too critical about that pumpkin stout one, let's try that base pumpkin beer from Schlafly. It's their special release one. It comes out every year, and apparently they make ones. If we lived in St. Louis, we'd get one every once in a while. They come out with different styles. On its own, it's actually still a pretty big beer, 8% alcohol.
And this was pretty fresh. You were just down in St. Louis recently, is that right?
Yep, I was just there a few weeks ago, so this is pretty fresh. All right, Jim, what do you think about the base beer?
I really like the base beer. It's got a great nose to it, a really great malty base. It's spiced well. This is a really good pumpkin beer.
It's a good balance, right?
Yes. And it's a little big for most pumpkin beers, but it's pretty tasty.
Now, Jim, how do you think this compares to the second beer, the third beer from Schlafly, which is the Ibex Cellar? And can you tell us a little bit about that cellar aging?
Yeah, so Ibex Cellar is a special release of beers from Schlafly. Ibex Cellar is a special room that they have just underneath the tap room. And these are a series of specially handcrafted beers. They're mostly barrel-aged, but they're all very special to Schlafly. So this particular beer has been barrel-aged, and the barrel aging really has added some complexity to it. Andy, you got a winner here?
No. I mean, I like this one a little bit more than the base is. The base is a little bit better than the bigger one we tried, and it's just still not doing it for me. It's an improvement, but you can't improve on bad.
So, not a fan of the based pumpkin. What do you think about the Ibex Cellar?
The Ibex I could actually get behind. It's toned down and everything's melded correctly. as far as my taste buds go. And there's always a certain percentage of people who absolutely abhor pumpkin beers, and I just happen to be one of them. But this one I could maybe drink 2 of, and
2 dozen?
No, like 2.
Oh, it sounds like somebody's
2.
coming to Pumpkin Jesus.
Absolutely not, Alex.
We're not done yet.
Absolutely not.
No, it sounds like you definitely have a preference. I also agree with you. I think the base pumpkin is better than the pumpkin stout, and that's just because it's got a little more pumpkin. It tastes more like a pumpkin ale to me. But the Ibex Cellar one, it adds that little bit of vanilla, that little bit of char, that little bit of whiskey. That's a much better beer. I don't know, something about a barrel-aged pumpkin beer really appeals to me. Kind of like a holiday stout that's been barrel-aged in brandy barrels like the Lakefront one does. Like that barrel aging kind of adds a little something to kind of a spice flavored beer.
I'll say this, all these beers are going to be pumpkin forward, but this puts the correct amount of pumpkin on your palate with a nice mix of other things. Pumpkin's not a huge percentage of what you're tasting.
Yeah, as you were saying, Andy, the flavors are melded much more. I think that's the aging in the barrel. And so that spice isn't in your face like it is in some of these other beers. It's much more approachable.
We should also say that the Ibex Cellar one has been aged about a year in Jesus' cellar. So it was aged in a cellar in a barrel, and then aged in the cellar at the Solid Non-Fail Studios. So it's kind of melded in. Like those, what did we say? Those flavors have fallen into the beer a little bit. So, Jesus, where are we heading to next?
Well, we're not going very far.
What's
We're staying in Missouri.
The next step on our pumpkin patch journey
a short Uber drive to O'Fallon. We're going to try their base pumpkin beer and their vanilla pumpkin. So it's they also do like a whole variety of pumpkin beers. So I got 2 of them because I didn't want Andy to start running out of my house. So so we're only going to do 2, but these are some fun ones. So let's crack into the first one, the base beer. All right, so the base beer of the O'Fallon Pumpkin Ale. Yeah, I almost feel like Andy right now. Not really my favorite pumpkin beer. It just doesn't have that complexity of the Schlafly or the other ones we've tried.
Yeah, after Southern Tier and Schlafly, it's like pumpkin soda.
It really is. It's a very light base ale with not much spice. And
is that a lager?
Yeah, right. It might be.
It's got that sort of complexity. Not a lot.
But even like the base Lakefront pumpkin beer is a lager, and that's pretty flavorful. This is just... Yeah,
I guess I shouldn't say pumpkin ale. It's a pumpkin beer, but I just don't think there's any complexity. No, the spice isn't there. I don't think there's much of a malt backbone. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I would say this is the least successful of any of the ones that we've tried. Even the year-old Southern Tier, I thought had more flavor than this one, and this is fairly fresh, right?
I just got this in the same trip, so it just it's not there. We're eager to hear Andy's thoughts.
I hesitate to even.
So we shit on it. So Andy, what do you have to say?
Well, it's not good, Jesus. It's like pumpkin soda and pumpkin cream soda.
Alert.
It's like bad and fucking terrible.
Okay, so you
figure it out.
So you went right to the vanilla. I guess the vanilla at least had a little bit of sweetness to it, but too much sweetness way too much sweetness.
And Andy nailed it with the cream soda reference. I'm getting so much cream soda.
Oh yeah. If the first one was just pumpkin soda, this one is definitely cream soda with a hint of pumpkin. Like they passed a pumpkin through it.
And take that pumpkin out and make it into some fucking root beer and it'd be delicious.
You know what? As I drink this, though, what surprises me as I look through all these beers is that none of them are brewed with lactose. You would think that, when I think of a pumpkin beer, or when I think of a pumpkin pie, it's got some whipped cream on it, and that adds that extra creaminess, that kind of milkiness to it, and I don't see any beers with that. And
that's interesting.
Milkiness?
That's really fun, interesting
You think
idea.
we can get Eagle Park to do a little...
I think Eagle Park's next idea, the
Jim's
milkshake
The
pumpkin beer.
Milkshake?
Jim's
Pumpkin
milkiness.
milkshake.
All right.
I think we're going to launch them.
Jim's campaigning hard for the pumpkin
Pumpkin
milkshake. Let us know if you like that idea, and
but you're right.
Get that done.
But actually, that's a good point. A lot of the description does say it's a pumpkin pie in a bottle. But you're right. It doesn't have that mouthfeel. It would be nice.
There's no
to have
whipped
that.
cream on these. You got to got to get a little whipped cream on your pumpkin pie.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we are all in agreement that
do we have any? Okay, at least do we have a preference between the two? Do you prefer? I think I prefer the vanilla over the base, just 'cause it's got a little more flavor. But
I
it's just
prefer the
not-
vanilla just because it has flavor. I just do not think the other one has anything for me.
I think I like the base because it's the lack of flavor, and the vanilla is just weird to me. Because it's not vanilla. It's
Right. Okay.
something just weird.
Andy, which do you prefer?
I hate them both, but fuck it, vanilla.
All right, Jesus.
He's coming to pumpkin Jesus.
I think he's left pumpkin cheese.
Okay.
All right, Jesus. Next stop on the pumpkin tour in the pumpkin patch.
Okay, we're jumping on that Greyhound, coming back home. We got to come back home. So we're going to do the Badger State Mashing Pumpkins, and we're going to, reliable, one of my favorites, the Lakefront, the Pumpkin Imperial Ale, barrel-aged. So let's crack into the Mashing Pumpkins first.
Andy, I dare you to not like one of these beers.
I dare you.
You're fucking on. Well, it's not that bad when you dump them together.
Please tell me you got that. That might be the cold open.
All right, Mashing Pumpkins. Wow. Our friends at Badger State really did it again. This has been sitting in my cellar, honestly, for a year. And I thought it was going to fall off compared, to the other beers we've had that have been sitting here for a year. But it feels like it's just been off the line. It is really good. It's fantastic.
I'll tell you what, the crazy part about this one is that Jim looked this one up on the internet, and it looks like it's coming in at 5.8%. That's the story on the internet, which is not typically an ageable beer in your cellar, and I feel like this one is coming in really nicely after a year of aging.
Yeah, nothing is different from the first time I had it last year. I think it's the same.
That's well done on Badger State's part. Jim, what are you getting out of this one?
They crushed this. This is unbelievable. I'm getting huge, big pumpkin kind of yam gourd flavors up front. The base malt is fantastic. And this is a year old. At 5.8, this is unbelievable. This is crazy.
I see Andy over there with a 3/4 chub. Andy, what do you think?
Maybe a half. But no, Mashing Pumpkins it's hitting the mark for what it is. Honestly, I'd say the best of the night for me.
Coming to Pumpkin Jesus.
Followed by.
We're not done yet, asshole.
We're almost done.
We're not there yet.
I'm just summing it up because I'm done after this. No, there's only one more. Come on.
No, so Mashing Pumpkins got to be one of your favorites on the night.
Mashing Pumpkins, Ibex, and then the last one we're doing right now, the Lakefront Barrel Aged Pumpkin Ale. It's just...
What do you think of the Lakefront Pumpkin Ale? So this is side-by-side on this portion of the episode. I think both of these are pretty fantastic. Both of these might be a couple of my favorites.
See, but the Lakefront followed the rules that we kind of have heard, which is over 8%. Lakefront, what'd you say, Jim? 13?
Yeah, 13.8. Holy shit.
So this can sit for a while,
Andy, what do you think of the Lakefront? It's a barrel-aged version of their Pumpkin Imperial Ale.
To me, they discoed the holiday spice. It tastes like they put pumpkin into that.
No, you like the pumpkin, the holiday spice, correct?
It was okay. It's just not my thing, the things that go into it. But it tastes like they put the pumpkin into it for this one.
No, that was a fun episode. We got to sit down with Russ right before Black Friday last year and sit down and do kind of a vertical of crazy old holiday spice beers. Did you think they got better as they got older? And how do you think that applies to their pumpkin imperial
We were
ale?
just judging how they held up, to be honest with you. Those type of spices just aren't my thing. I thought the majority of them held up well on the episode. Some of them didn't. It's just for pumpkin beers, this is middle of the pack tonight on Terrible, I always go by the saying, every time a pumpkin beer gets drunk, a kitten dies. But it's...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Jim...
Jim...
just move on. Just move on.
Okay. So...
Okay.
100% more Jim on this episode. Jim, tell us what you think about these two pumpkin beers.
Yeah, as I said, the Badger State is absolutely fantastic. It's so full flavored. It is really pumpkin pie in a glass. The barrel aged version of the pumpkin ale by Lakefront. It's definitely dropped off the kind of pumpkin-y flavor, but the barrel aging has added some complexity to it. It's pretty good.
Are both of these about a year old, Jesus?
Yeah, actually, both of them are a year old.
Yeah, I gotta say, both these beers are really holding up nicely.
And it's really nice that amongst my favorites are the two local ones, you know. I love Schlafly, and I think they made some great stuff, but these two came in pretty damn hard.
So for me, I'm glad this goddamn
For me,
experience
for
is
Andy.
over.
Looks like we're all out of beer.
It's the worst time of the year on the Tap Takeover podcast for Andy. But I will say that Mashing Pumpkin stood out, and so did the Ibex series from Schlafly. The rest...
No love on the lakefront?
The rest, I don't care.
Did we ruin your piece of pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving this year?
You absolutely ruined...
You ruined today, you ruined tomorrow.
There's more, but I will say the Mashing Pumpkins, I think what did do that for me for that beer was there was more cinnamon in that than any other beer, I believe.
All right, so
That's what it tasted like.
Jesus, high five. We ruined Andy's piece of pumpkin pie again this year. Jim, high five. You were part of it.
Awesome.
That's our goal every year. Okay, so let's go through some of these beers and kind of break them down on how we would rate them. For me, I think it starts with the Ibex. I think that was the best one I had all day. And after that, it's definitely the Mashing Pumpkins from Badger State. The fact that one held on after a year as well as it has at such a low ABV, such great flavors. That's amazing that they were able to do that. Right after that, it's the Lakefront. Then I would go with the Schlafly, the base beer. And then I would go with the pumpkin from Southern Tier, and then at the very end is going to be the O'Fallon. Both the vanilla and the base beer, neither one quite made it for me. Jim, how would you go for these guys?
For me, Badger State comes in one. It's so flavorful. A lot of these, with the aging, some of the flavors have fallen off a touch, but not the Badger State. It's still totally in your face. And then I'm with you with the Ibex, the barrel aging. It's very complex. It's still got a lot of pumpkin flavor going on. It's mildly spiced. And then from there, I think probably the base of the Schlafly, the Lakefront barrel aged, and then Imperial Pumpkin, and then, everything else. Jesus, what's your rating on these?
I guess for me, like I look at it as a pure pumpkin beer. I think the pumpkin ale, the Ibex Cellar, is a better beer. But it's too, it's not a bad thing, but it's just too much barrel, too much sweetness, too much like aging. When I think of pumpkin beers, I think of that Mashing Pumpkins. That Badger State really held up, and I'm just shocked that it's that low in ABV.
That's two for the Mashing Pumpkins.
So I would go that number one, and then I would go Ibex Cellar. The base beer for pumpkin, for Schlafly, the pumpkin ale, is just, that's just the one that kind of got me going on this. And then the Lakefront. Then I would go Southern Tier, and that Schlafly Pumpkin Stout it disappointed me. I just never had it before, but it just didn't do what I thought it was going to do, for me. And then, of course, O'Fallon just brings it all at the end, because I just did not find anything there. So
Andy, when I tried sour beers for the first time, I had a lot of trouble with them. I've kind of come around, but I could always say that, this isn't necessarily the beer for me, but I can understand what people like. And I appreciate that you've gone through this pumpkin patch and tried to pick out flavors that you like and flavors that you don't, even though you don't like most of those flavors. So how would you rate these according to a pumpkin beer flavorist, even though you may not be one?
Well, I can say just what I said right before all you guys rated them. Mashing Pumpkins, the Ibex, and don't care.
Okay, all right.
I
Gone in a different direction than
not my thing. The Badger State Mashing Pumpkins, yes, that stood out just like it did for you guys. But that flavor profile just isn't my thing. It's just not.
It's a very strong flavor profile to begin with. So if you're not liking the nutmeg or the pumpkin spice and the cinnamon, it's just never going to be your thing. So
it's about all I got for rating those, because I can't do anything else with it. No, I'm just, let's not, let's put it to bed and not speak of it till next
year.
October.
Till next year. All right, that seems fair. And it looks like we're out of beer anyway. So we'll end the pumpkin patch. As fun as this little traipse through the pumpkin patch has been. So for me, for Alex.
I'm Jim.
Jesus, and we're just getting started. Motherfucker, there's 2 more. No, I'm just kidding. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. Andy here, we're done.
This has been another solid non-fail production.